Okay, the Civic giveaway is in full swing. I go to obsessgarage.com and click on the banner image. It takes you to the Civic page. You have to buy stuff from the Civic page in order to win this thing. And yes, I'm going to give it away. I'm going to give away the original motor, all 7 sets of wheels, every part and piece of this thing will be given to the next person. I'm going to draw that random person probably April 2nd or 3rd, something like that. The giveaway ends on March 31st. So buy a bunch of crap so I can do this again, and I hope that it makes me some money or at least breaks even, because I'm $140,316.50 that I know of into this car. And yes, I know this car isn't worth $140,000. It's probably worth 30, if that. You know, I paid $25 for the darn thing, and then put every part on it, and then there's a bunch of parts in the attic that didn't work or I didn't do, so there's quite a bit of extra, which I think most people go through when you do a project like this. I just did it in a really condensed period of time. If I could have done this for $8,000, I would have done it. But it doesn't really work that way. And when you see all the stuff, and we'll show you the spreadsheet here in the video, when you see it all on paper, it makes more sense. When you're paying, import duties and shipping the car back and forth, and labor on different things like the engine, labor on the stereo system. Yes, I could have done this a lot differently, but this is what I wanted. This is what I wanted when I was 20 years old, 19 years old. This is what I now have the means to do. But the only way that something like this works is if we sort of get together as a crowd and you guys sort of crowdfund this thing. Yeah, I could blow 140 grand on it, but I probably wouldn't have done it if there wasn't a greater project to do a giveaway on the thing. So I'm going to take you from front to back. We'll see if I can remember everything that we put on this. Again, we're going to publish. We'll put the spreadsheet up in the video here. It'll be in the description. It'll be on the Civic page. We had to make some tweaks to it because I had some redundancies and things like that. It's a little tricky because some of the parts I got for less. Some of them I got for most everything I just paid retail pricing for, because I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to do any dance. I didn't want to owe anybody anything. And so we went through the process I went through the process pretty quickly of just buying everything retail and just getting it here as quickly as possible without begging a bunch of people for stuff. So the purchase of the car. I took a lot of flack for this, and I still do, that I ruined a good example. This was a 26,000 mile. We did find that it does have some repaint on the door, but otherwise relatively unmolested car. It spent, I think, all of its life in Minnesota and Iowa, so it spent almost all its time there. I don't know that it's ever seen rain. All of the people who owned it before me loved this thing and took really great care of it. Of course, the paint was swirled out and stuff like that just because of too much touching, people not really knowing how to take care of the paint. But in general, the car is a really, really clean example. All the zinc bolts are still nice and clean. There's all original numbers matching everything. I have a folder this thick and had a few little minor modifications like eyebox springs, but all the original parts came with the car. The original wheels aren't peeling. All the seals and all of that stuff are factory fresh. I didn't want to start with some jank version. This is not how I do things. I wanted to start with a very clean, very nice, start fresh example of a car and then bolt a bunch of stuff on it. But the thesis here is that it can be unbolted and rebolted. So the car could be put back together, factory fresh, numbers matching, everything that came with the car stays with the car. And so I don't think we've really devalued it other than putting some really cool stuff on it that somebody may or may not want. But this is what I chose to buy. Also remember, some of the stuff that I like, Jay's Racing and Amuse and some of the Comtech, they just don't really exist. They're not making stuff for these anymore. And so some of the stuff I would have wanted to do, I couldn't do because it didn't exist. So the paint was corrected when I first got the car. We also did some metal reconditioning. It's gone to Michael Good at the Dent Company twice. He came up here, took everything out. I also sent it down to him, and he did another once over on it after everything was done. The last thing I need to do to it is get an alignment, which I'm doing on Tuesday next week, and then I need to refresh the coating. It's got some overspray and stuff on it, some funk on it from it traveling back and forth to different places. So the paint is in good condition. I mean, there's, you know, normal, you know, 25,000 mile little rock chips and things like that. On all the EM1 Civics, the blue, you can see this is a little purple in comparison to the normal blue paint. A lot of the plastics have faded to purplish. Same thing with the side splitters and the rear trunk insert for the license plate. I could have repainted those, but my guess is the match would have been similarly off. And so I didn't want to repaint if I didn't have to. And so it kind of gives a little character, and everybody knows that this purple stays purple or turns purple, and it shouldn't be that way, but that's what happened to the factory cars. So I left that alone. I did consider, you know, reconditioning it, but I decided to leave it. So if we're going from front to back, Civic Type R headlights. These come with a city light, which I got a little wiring harness for that somebody sent, and then I did some basic 4,000 Kelvin bulbs. I didn't want to do some, you know, retrofit. I didn't want to do some projector retrofit or something like that. Maybe the next guy could do that. Although I guess you could say I modified it, I wouldn't call this a highly modified car. It's more of a bolt-on thing. I like to start with cars that I already like and then bolt things on it to make it a little bit better, and then play with it to try to, you know, fix those problems that you create when you start bolting things on. And so I've learned my lessons over the years of going too far with things. So this we got pretty close. I mean, there's some things I'll tweak, which we'll talk about as we work our way through. So headlights, and then I did matching new bulbs in the factory fog lights, which this car came with. The engine swap. So this was one of the biggest expenses. I think this was about, including the titanium intake that John and LHT made, I think the engine swap was about 13, almost 14,000. I wanted, when I was 20 years old, I had a red valve cover, but I had a B16A2 with some, you know, with a Toda header and an Iceman intake, which I eventually wanted to swap for an AEM because the Iceman was kind of cheaper, and so I eventually got an AEM intake on mine. But I wanted to do an ITR swap, a JDM ITR swap, and so that's what we have. This is a B18C. And I sent it down to, I talked John from LHT and his busy schedule of fitting me in. So actually, the moment I got the car, I sent him like 12 grand, said, book me my spot. I got the spot like 3 months down the road. He found somewhere to fit me in. I think I paid for the engine in like April of 2020, and we did it in like November or something, just October, November. Yeah, November is when he did the engine swap. So he booked me in, you know, actually, I guess it was 7 months later. What I wanted, he and I put our heads together, I wanted a B18C JDM engine, limited slip, ITR transmission. So this came out of a, was it a DC2? But a Japan version, so this is an imported engine. John said the engine was super clean, but completely rebuilt, new cams, new cam gears, and I wanted it to work like stock. And that meant I have to give up horsepower. Yes, we could have done a K-swap. Yes, we could have done a turbo. Yes, I could have done a supercharger of some sort. But this is what I wanted. It's made 196 horsepower at the wheels. It's, you know, once you get this thing moving, it's actually pretty quick. It sounds amazing. Red lines it right at 9,000 RPMs, and just turned out to be just freaking fantastic. So this thing here, I don't think anyone would pull this out of this car. It is factory fresh. The only mistake I made, and I talked to John yesterday about this, or Friday, I said, I need to pull out because I decided to do Hasport engine mounts, and these are solid engine mounts, and this is like the Honda boy thing to do. I knew that I probably wouldn't like it, but I needed to try it. And so the problem with these mounts is that it transitions all that energy, all that vibration, all that NVH back through this tin chassis of this this Econo box. And I was talking to him the other day. I'm like, how do I swap these back? He's like, just leave it. The next person will probably want it. If they don't want it, they can, you know, they can change it out. It's really not hard to do. I just don't want to do it. And so it has these Hasport mounts, which makes which makes the engine rock less, but it also transitions all that vibration through the car. So then I actually bought all kinds of spoon parts. My friend Sean at PSI ordered me up all the spoon stuff, and so I got spoon radiator hoses. This one, the spoon logo is starting to wear away, so I'll probably just wipe that off with some all-purpose cleaner or something like that. Koyorad reached out, sent me a radiator, so this they did send to me, but all the spoon stuff I paid retail for. I actually bought spoon strut tower braces, but then I saw that King Motorsports had just gotten an allotment of Mugen. I like to say Mugen, but it's Mugen. Mugen strut tower braces for the front and rear. So I actually have a set of spoons, and I don't know if I'll give with the car or I'll sell or something like that. But the Mugen strut tower braces look awesome. And then John set me up with some brackets. He welded on some brackets onto the strut tower brace for my remote reservoirs, for my Moton three-way suspension, which is complete nonsense, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I did a lightweight, what are these, anti-gravity batteries, which saved me, was it 28 or 29 pounds or something like that? And then the hood as well. The hood is a spoon carbon fiber hood, which isn't super nice. It's not the same spoon that used to be spoon, but it's kind of janky. I took PPF over it so that it looks as good as possible. But if somebody gets the car and keeps it, I would put the blue hood back on, which is a really clean hood. There's like one rock chip on it. It looks great, and so you could put that back on if you wanted to. But I had Michael Good really work on gaps and making sure that it's solid and make sure that it fits properly, which took some work. But that was a big project. The other thing I had back in the day, which took me took us, my buddy Ryan and I, like 2 days to put the Toda header on. This is the first modification I did by myself, I think, other than cutting the back seats out of my Chevy Beretta. This was the first engine modification I'd ever done, and we had problems with the shift linkage hitting the header. So I did a Toda header and test pipe when I was like 20 years old in my buddy's garage on jack stands. And we took it out for the first test drive and forgot to put the dipstick in and shot oil all over it. So this one I made sure to keep nice and clean, nice and beautiful. So Toda header, I have a Blocks test pipe just because they make an adjustable test pipe that was really easy to do. And then I originally did an Apex I exhaust, but right now we have a Fujitsubo RM01A, like the Fujitsubo version of the exhaust for the car. Car has power steering, has cruise control, has air conditioning, has everything factory fresh. John made me a custom titanium welded cold air intake for the car. And it has the factory harness, the factory fuse box, everything nice and simple and clean. The engine is controlled by a Honda ECU, and I guess it'd be a piggyback, I think is how the Honda works. But John set me up. We talked about doing ITBs, talked about doing some things more aggressive. But the key is I wanted to start up and run with no issues. I don't be driving around with laptops on my front seat. So again, this is a slightly modified, factory fresh, rebuilt, might as well be 0 mile JDM ITR engine. So let's go around the side here. Let's talk about the suspension, brakes, wheels, and all that stuff. Okay, so a lot of money, a lot of waste, a lot of things I don't need went into the suspension. But I don't care. I love, call me what you want, but I had nothing better in this world. I've worked my face off to have UPS show up at my house darn near every day with something freaking cool. And so with the suspension parts, I wanted to replace a bunch of stuff for the fun of it. You can say what you want. But what I first did, and this was a conversation with my buddy Sean. He said, because I was going to do some Tane RAs or Tane Flex or some Fight X coilovers or something like that, but my buddy Sean, who owns PSI in Orlando, Precision Sport Industries, they do BMW, primarily BMW Porsche tuning, but he's been in the game forever. He may have even had one of these cars back in the day, but he said, let's do a Moton suspension just for the absurdity of it. I said, that's a darn good idea. He said, well, I don't want it to be super harsh. And so I have a revalved, I'm not sure what the spring rates are. I told him I don't care. Just pick them. You guys know more than I do about it. Revalved, respringed, if you want to call that. So it's a different spring than what a normal three-way suspension would have, because this is an aggressive race setup designed for the street. And so we just dumbed down this awesome set of three-way adjustable coilovers, which I'm running on full soft on all three settings, and you could play with that whoever wins the car. But the suspension was what, $13,600 just for the coilover, something insane. And it's a complete waste of money, but man, is it fun to play with something like that and have the reservoir mount set up and stuff like that. And so we have up here, we have the remote reservoir with the lines run up and snaked around the engine, and John has it all tied up nice and neatly. And then, of course, the brackets are welded up top there. But the suspension took a couple of things for me to play with. I have all hard race components, and the reason why I did hard race is a lot of the other stuff isn't really available. And I know K-Tunes has some stuff, and there's some other US companies that make some things for these cars, but hard race was one of those things back in the day that was kind of available. Most of the time you'd do like Jay's Racing or something like that, but that's stuff I just couldn't get in relatively short order. So I called, I think it's Velocity Motorsports in South Florida, who's the hard race importer, said, what should I do and can I get it? And so he got me everything in a few weeks. And so what I ended up with, I've drop forks, and I've got lower, what is that little camber ball offset, the little offset joint. I've got those that didn't go on the car, but we have hard race upper control arms for camber adjustment, so I have some camber adjustability, or more camber adjustability, so we can play with that. We ended up doing the lower control arms, which have, I did all rubber, so they're hardened rubber bushings. I did underneath here spoon rigid collars to keep the subframe aligned. Spoon twin block, because I didn't do a 5-lug conversion. That's another thing that a lot of people said I should have done, but I found that it was easier to find 4-lug wheels than it was 5-lug through Skyline. Skyline on Instagram has had a lot of wheels available for me. These are Honda. I'm probably going to take these off and paint this, but these are Honda rotors from Spoon. So a enlarged rotor, and I have racing. These are like $900 titanium lug nuts on this thing. I don't even think I have those on the spreadsheet because Jason sent those to me. And then wheels. So we have 7 sets of wheels, including the stock. And so these are TE37s on here that are a 16x8. And everybody orders hot boy offsets now. So you got to get these weird, super wide wheels, and then you got to run stretch tires on it, unless you want to rub. But a lot of the original, 16x7, say plus 35 or plus 40, where you could run a 215 nice and comfortably, they're just really not available. Like a flat face TE37 in gunmetal, I just couldn't find any of them, and I wanted new. I didn't want some janky old beat up crap. And so we have 2 sets of TE37s, one in 16, one in 15, both 8-inch wide, both plus 35 offset. One in this diamond black finish, which is like a dark gray, and then one in a flat black or matte black finish. That's the 15s. I bought, I think, 10 different sets of tires to play with, and remounting and balancing them to figure out what works. We're going to make a video here coming up soon with all the wheels. I have Spoon Desmond Regamasters, Volk RE30s, Volk CE28Ns. I've got a really clean set of the original tires and original wheels that came on the car, original 15. So they're all they're all coming with the car as well. So whoever gets this thing is getting 7 sets of wheels. I'm gonna have to ship all the stuff in pallets off to whoever wins the darn thing. But these are the wheels that I like the most. The only thing I don't like, these are RE71Rs from Bridgestone. That they're a 205 on an 8-inch wide wheel, which makes it a little stretched. But in general, I think they look okay. Again, I'd rather have gunmetal on blue instead of black, or this blackish finish, but that's what I got. So we got a bunch of different wheels. The reason why I haven't aligned it yet is because I've been playing with the different wheels to figure out which ones are going to go on the car before we get the final alignment set up. But yeah, the front suspension added like 30 pounds because the bigger brakes. I have spoon, what do you call it? Spoon pads, which were a little shocking in that they don't have clips, so they kind of bounce around a little bit. And then I also found the pedal was super spongy, so a bunch of guys suggested I swap over to a Type R and Integra larger orificed BrakeMaster cylinder, and then we put a BrakeMaster cylinder brake from Hard Race on there, or a brace from Hard Race, and so now the pedal feel is not spongy, it's super stout. It feels really good. So the brakes are good. I like how they're performing. My friends Mark and Jack from Savage Geese were here using the brakes, so they're a little dirty, but I do need to clean it up. So that's the front suspension. So rear suspension. Again, we have our racing lugs. These things are so good. I think they're worth every penny. I want them to have lug bolts like this where it has a Torx style insert, so you never contact the outside of the lug nut, so they never get beat up on the outside like most lugs do, most nice lugs. So I think Willwood is the only company that makes a rear caliper set, but I didn't want to mess with that, with the e-brake and all of that. So stock rears, but with spoon pads. I did new OE rear rotors, and then I just painted the caliper, by hand. Just painted it with a brush black so that it looks nice and clean. Again, the Motons in the rear. I have a shoot, what's that mount called? I forget the company that makes reservoir mounts, but I actually mounted the reservoirs up underneath here. I didn't want to drill a giant hole in the trunk of the car. And I didn't do quick disconnects, which I should have done. So if you ever do 3 ways, make sure you get the quick disconnect so you can disconnect this and route the lines through into the trunk, because it's probably not best to have this underneath the car, but again, this car isn't going to see a lot of rain and certainly not going to see snow. Hard Race upper camber joint, and then I have the Hard Race rear lower control arms, Hard Race rear sway bar, and then the Hard Race rear center brace as well. But the rear suspension of the car, I always loved that. Remember, back in the day, I had a DC Sports red little frame brace in the middle. I didn't have all this other stuff, but I had a rear frame brace, and I always thought it was so cool to see the car from behind. You could look up underneath there, and so all that Hard Race stuff looks pretty sick. And then here's my my Fujitsubo exhaust, which was a little quiet before header and test pipe. But now this thing sounds freaking incredible. Go watch the Savage Geese video and you can really hear the thing. It sounds freaking awesome. I'll do some more driving stuff here coming up on the thing. But the rear of the car, the suspension, there's no subframe I think it's an integrated subframe, so there's no collars or anything to put back there. And I couldn't find, I really did want to find a rear lip spoiler, but I couldn't find a nice one, so we just left it alone. But you just look at how clean this car is. There's some dust on it now, but all of this stuff in here is clean and neat and organized and just beautiful. That's what I wanted. I wanted a car that wasn't all frickin' janky. Even though I'm going to put some bolt-ons and ruin it, it's nice having a really, really clean, almost darn near perfect example of the car. So let's talk interior. And I could have gone crazy in here, and I was planning to go crazy. And then as I saw it start to come together,
nixed the idea of refinishing the door panels and refinishing the back seats and all of that. I was thinking about getting red Type R carpeting and getting, just having this weird little swoop-de-doo on the Mugen seats removed somehow. But once I saw it all come together and I sat inside of it and we did the stereo and all of that, I just decided not to mess with it too much. And so the first thing was most important to me is it had white gauge faces, and so I pulled apart the cluster. I don't know why anyone would ever want to mess with that. This is one of the best gauge clusters of all time. Just looks super clean. And so I thought about doing like a spoon cluster, but then it would be in kilometers, and I just didn't want that. And so this is just a beautiful factory SI gauge cluster. I did want to do something cool with the steering wheel, and I thought I would just buy a Mugen or a spoon steering wheel and remove the airbag. But my friend Anthony, who you have to credit, this whole idea was his. All Day Anthony on YouTube and Anthony at the Rag Company. He suggested I do this project and relive my old glory days. He has an EX Civic 2000, and he said, you got to get an S2000 steering wheel. I said, that's a darn good idea, because then I could retain an airbag, retain the normal horn and all of that, and you can actually retain cruise control with doing some wiring, which I didn't do, which someone could do if they wanted to. But this is a Euro Boutique refinished flat bottom, just awesome wheel. I don't normally like aftermarket wheels in a car, but to do just a slight modification to an S2000 wheel, now when I say slight, I think this cost me like $2,500 to get done. I had to buy a new airbag and everything, but it really turned out great. So Euro Boutique steering wheel, S2000 steering wheel. I have Spoon Sports shift knob, Civic Type R shift boot, and then believe it or not, this has a Tenzo R short shifter, which actually is freaking great. I have a K-tuned and I have a hybrid racing upstairs, and I just can't bring myself to do it. This is what I had back in the day. I had this exact shift knob. I had it in not in black. I think they made it in black then, but I had it in silver, like aluminum. And so this isn't the most efficient shift knob and shift boot combination, but it feels great. It feels super mechanical. We have the ITR shift linkage and stuff here. It's freaking great. So I don't want to mess with it, other than I have to kind of lean down to shift the darn thing. We have, I did OE black Civic Mats. So these are OEM Honda black Civic Mats. And then I have a Sargent Racing dead pedal, Mugen new pedal, or pedal covers, I guess you could say, and then the Mugen seats, which these are a Recaro variant that are just freaking fantastic. When I first got them, I thought I was too chubby for them, but they've kind of broken in a little bit, and they're just freaking great. I want these seats in all of my cars. I hardwired a Uniden R7, and nobody makes, like Blend Mount doesn't make a mount for this car, so I used the OE mount, but hardwired it in, and then we did the stereo. You have to go and watch the video of the stereo, and it was it cost me, it was like $26,000 and change was what the final bill was. And it's a very simple system. You can't even tell there's anything going on. So I have kick panel speakers. I didn't want to modify the dash and have to see this giant box. This is what I had back in the day. So it has a 4-inch and 1-inch Dyne Audio in the kick, has a Dyne Audio 6.5-inch Isotar woofer in the door. The doors have been sound deadened, and there's a very specific drip panel and then baffle that's been created in order to keep it from vibrating, and even modified these so they clip on and off more nicely. Derek from Sound of Motion refinished the pods so the OE tweeter pods wouldn't show. Just beautiful. And the Sony RSX GS9 head unit, and that's really it in the front stage. So 3-way setup. We're using the Dyne Audio crossovers for the kicks, and then doing active crossing over with the Moscone processor for the doors, and it's exactly what I wanted. smooth. I'm sensitive to high frequency stuff. That's why people who love focals and speakers like that, I don't like that. It's just not smooth enough for me. Most dudes have a hard time hearing high stuff. Well, for whatever reason, I'm very, very sensitive to it. But the stereo, the center image is right here above the steering wheel where I want it. I know when I ask a pro, it should be in the center of the dash, but I want it in the steering wheel. And, we have two 10s in the trunk, which I'll show you in a second here, but just fantastic how it came out. Kind of ruins it that you have those Hasport mounts that vibrate your face off when you're at idle, but the stereo is freaking cool. More cool to like plug in a battery charger and sit in the garage here and listen to it. But it's cool for a Civic. But everything in here is just beautiful. The sunroof works, nothing leaks. Everything is nice and functional. Everything is perfectly clean and well put together. There's minimal vibration because of the way that Sound and Motion set the door panels up and things like that. This car actually has the dealership installed leather package, which I have the original seats and everything like that as well. So I have the original steering wheel, original seats. The only thing that was modified in here were the kick panels, and actually these kick panels have more foot room than the original OE version. So if you wanted to go back to stock, I have the original speakers and everything. The only thing that would need to be done would be you get some new kick panels and put it back together. The Hondata and the ECU is relocated up under the dash here. The nice bracket that Sound and Motion built and then LHT modified. But back here, the stereo is hidden. So the trunk looks factory, looks clean, and actually is better than factory because now it has it's been carpeted underneath here, recarpeted, and then Derek put in some Velcro in order to keep everything in place. But we have a Moscone, the Moscone 5-channel amplifier. The thing's a beast. Custom acrylic and screened amp panel, amp rack. And then the subwoofer box is up underneath here with the wiring perfectly set up so you don't see anything. It's two down-firing 10-inch woofers that are ported, and the ports actually come up to the back here and then, are sort of rearward firing, if you will, rearward ported. And they're two Illusion Audio little baby 10-inch woofers, so nothing that's going to destroy you. But just a nice, good, high-quality sound cue system that cost a fortune to make it disappear. We could have just put some boxes in here for $5 and called it a day. This 50% of the cost of the system, if not maybe a little bit more, was the labor, and I'm super pleased with it. Everybody was yelling at me saying, "You got taken advantage of." And no, I knew exactly what I was getting into. Knew exactly what it was going to cost. But I love the stereo, and I'm really pleased with how this car came out. I'm excited to get the alignment done next week and go out and really start driving it. Driving it a little bit harder, so that way just to kind of see how it does and how well it can do. And it's funny, Bryce is driving the car and he's like, "This thing sucks." I said, "Well, the Civic sucks," and in general, these cars are not great, and so you have to, it's not comfortable. It's not as comfortable as a modern car, but we made it pretty darn comfortable and pretty darn nice for what it is. So I guess that's a wrap on Project Nostalgia here. Project Go Broke. Project 2021, get a small loan to feed my family and pay my employees. But it's on a serious note, I feel like this completes the story, completes the project, completes the thing that I left behind when I was 22, because I wanted to get an S2000, and so I parted ways with mine, and probably should have kept it and kept playing with it. But when you're young and you want the next car, you need the money from the old car to go to the new car in order to survive. And I'm just now getting to the point to where I can go back and finish up these projects. So, like for instance, I want to get an E46 M3 because I always wanted one and couldn't get one. So this car, I'm pleased with how it turned out. Yeah, I know I spent a lot of money on it. Yes, I know we could have done it for less. I know that you could have done things differently, but this is the way I did it, and I like it. I think it's cool, and I think somebody's going to probably get the thing and part it out and make some money on it, which, whatever, that's fine. But go to obsessgarage.com, help me do these projects. If you want to see me do the next one, again, I'm looking at E46 or 9972 GT3 RS or GT3 as a next giveaway possibility. If I can recoup 140-something thousand bucks on this thing, even if I just come close to breaking even, it was worth it to me. But if you buy some stuff, it helps me do these kind of goofy projects. If you don't, then I just won't do them. But in general, it's been a fun experience. I don't want this car long term. I don't want to keep it. I would never want to grab the keys to this over my GT3 RS. But it is something that I think it's set up well. It's pretty cool, and checks the box of that chapter of my life. It's kind of like when I got a motorcycle and I had it for 600 miles and I got pulled over for doing 87 and a 35, sold the thing, and I've never wanted a motorcycle ever again. So I don't think I'll ever want an EM1 Civic ever again, because this, checks the box and solidifies the story. So we'll be doing some driving videos. I do need to do a coating maintenance update video, and who knows what else. We'll do some more videos on the car, but we're coming to a conclusion. Hopefully I'll be flying the person down here to come collect the car. We'll see. We'll see who wins it. And the nice thing about this giveaway is I was able to value this at 30 grand, so whoever wins it isn't going to have to pay 20,000 bucks in tax, unless you're just in a really, really high tax bracket. So it's a bit more achievable, attainable. Even if you do win it, you won't get smoked with taxes. But the beauty of this thing, you could sell off 6 sets of wheels for 15 grand and pay your tax there and pockets of money. Anyway, the numbers matched. Original OEM parts are going with it and everything. So yeah, fun project, and we'll have a few more wrap-up videos on it. Make sure to go check out Savage Geese's video he did on the car. I'm going to get Adam LZ to drive it down here next week after we get the alignment done. We'll get his take on it, and who knows what else I'll get into before I get rid of the car. But I'm too nervous to drive the darn thing because it's a frickin' 140 grand. So yeah, it adds up fast. So anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for your support, and go to obsessgarage.com and buy some crap so I can get on a hawk on this thing. See you soon. Thanks for watching.